Eu gostaria de chamar agora o Patrick Wurm. Ele é um especialista na construção de marcas globais e crescimento, com formação em negócios internacionais em Taiwan, Londres, Canadá e Áustria. Ele atua na consultoria Profit e colabora com grandes corporações, ONGs e líderes a se tornarem mais relevantes e aumentarem sua participação no mercado por meio da inovação e do branding. Electrolux, eBay, MediaTek, UBS, Swarovski são alguns de seus clientes. Ele veio direto de Zurique para nos contar um pouco sobre como construir marcas relevantes na era digital. Patrick, welcome aboard.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's really, really great to be here, actually. I love the energy, I love the people. When Flora told me about it, about the project and how it started, and she told me, so I asked her, what is it about? What are you doing? And she was like, yeah, we bring together all the different peoples from the industry, from the startup scene, from the technology scene. And I was like, that's fascinating. And she was like, actually, I mean, what do? Like, you travel the world, you meet all these brands, you meet these clients, but what exactly is it that you're doing? And so what I'm doing is, and I said, I'm a brand strategist. And she was like, okay, tell me more. What is that? You know, I mean, my parents still don't know. But so a brand strategist, what I did for the last 10 years really is to think about the way we can build strong brands. And if you think about the last 10 years, massive changes. And the maturity is really driven by technology. The maturity is driven by changing consumer needs. And it does not matter where you go. If you have worked a lot in Asia, worked a lot in Europe. This year and last year worked a lot actually in Sao Paulo. I was here 4 times. And it doesn't really matter where you go. Technology is changing the life of the customer in the fastest way possible. And this is what I would like to talk today about. How can we still stay relevant with that fast pace of technology, with the fast pace of change in the consumer's minds? So just a bit about the organization that I'm working for. It's called Profit. We are a digitally anchored growth consultancy, and it splits mainly in 3 parts. And why I show you that is just to know where I work, but the second is also because it's really important for everyone in this room. So there's one part that we are doing is brand and customer experience. The second part, digital transformation, and the third, growth acceleration, right? And if you think about your business, you need all of it. And all of it is very intertwined. You can't really separate all of it. So I will talk much more about brand and customer experience today with you. But please just approach me afterwards. Please just have a conversation and ask me any questions later. The second part here is also, if I can flip the, perfect. It's just, we have about 400 people globally with 10 offices, but why I show this slide is the setup is quite a unique setup how we are setting up. We have, out of the 400 people, we have a lot of different disciplines, and all of them are working at the same projects, and that's exactly how you should be set up, right? So if you work at organizations, what usually happens is there's a strategy department, there is a customer scientist department, then you have the designers who do design, and they're very siloed. We at Profit, and that's how also the companies, in a way, you should set them up, is you mix all these people together because everyone has a very different mindset around how you solve problems. So a designer got taught to solve a problem very differently to a business graduate, to a person who does UX design, to a person who does economics. Putting those people in a team is really, really powerful, and that's what we do at Profit, to really get all these different angles to really come up with the best solution. Just this slide, and then I stop talking about Profit and go into the how to build brands. This one is important, and if you remember one thing out of the presentation that I give you is put the customer first. And it sounds so simple, right? Everyone is talking about putting the customer first, but hardly anyone is really truly doing it. If you do innovations, if you do projects, have this customer first mentality, and the next slides that I will share with you will show you and give you somehow an indication of different tools and techniques that how you can do that in your daily life and as an organization. Great, let's get into it. I brought the theory, but then also highlighted with 2 cases, depending on the time where we get to with the cases. There's 2. We might only have to do 1. Cool. So let me bring you on the journey a bit. Let's go back in time. Let's go back 20, 30 years, right? The way we communicated was very much a billboard. You owned the conversation, you owned the communication, you read the magnificent views from the rooms, you change dramatically with the seasons. You think, if I go there in autumn, I see the leaves, it will be amazing. So you book it, you go there, you walk into the reception room. Yeah, it's a bit crowded, you need to wait. The smell, there's a bit of a smell there. You check in, they're quite rude. You go into your room, it's carpet, it's quite dirty. It's a very different experience than what you promised me. But then you go home, 30 years ago you went home and you told maybe your friends, you told your family. That's it, right? No one else would understand or find out, so you really owned the communication. That changed, right? So that changed. It's not so much more what you say, it's about actually what everyone else is doing. Because if you now see a really interesting hotel or any other services, you would immediately go to TripAdvisor. You would immediately go to tech comparison sites and look if this product is really as good as the manufacturer states, right? So there's a massive drastic shift from what you say to what everyone else is saying. And then you could think, no, well, it's quite old. I mean, it's TripAdvisor is around for 20 years or so, right? And you're absolutely right. But the speed in which it now changes is drastic. So if you think about people on Pinterest, people are pinning, people are gramming, they talk about all sorts of things, and if they do, it's quite crazy what happens when they do and how much power suddenly a single person has over your brand, over your communication. If you look at this example from Kylie Jenner, right? If Snapchat redesigned their user experience and design, and there was a bit negative sentiment around it, and then Kylie Jenner just posted, I'm a bit bored with it, I don't know, I'm a bit over it. The stock market, the stock price decreased by 6% in one single day. So the power of the consumer is getting more and more. And this is not where we will stop, right? We are not stopping with Instagram. It's just an evolution, and the power shift from what you communicate gets less important to what everyone else is saying gets even more important. So that brings us to the experience, right? If you look at the experience of a consumer these days, they do anything wherever, whenever, and however. If I want to order an Uber, I get the Uber in 3 minutes. If it's too long, if it's 8 minutes, you kind of get nervous. You feel like, oh, it's taking a bit too long. You order something on Amazon, it's same-day delivery. Within 4 hours, it's there. People are getting used to that instant gratification, instant delivery, instant service mentality, that if you build a customer experience, you cannot look within your category. You need to look at the best-in-class references and then compare it to those, because these ones are building the references for your customers. It's not within your category anymore. So this is a big shift in the way you do marketing. You need to really look outside into other categories and compare yourself to, am I good enough? Is the best company out there, and deliver the service that is required. Similar to here, I think 2 important trends here, obviously, internet connectivity, new ways of connecting, new ways of accessing, purchasing, engaging. But what's interesting here is the mobile everywhere, right? So people are on the go, they're constantly on the mobile phone. I'm seeing a few people here on the phone. So you're constantly connected, and that allows organizations to break the cycle of how marketers usually talked about it. It used to be that you need awareness, people need to know about your brand, then they need to get familiar with your brand, then they should hopefully consider you as a product, and then if you succeed, they prefer you and they purchase. But it was a bit of a long process. There was a lot of advertising involved, a lot of communication involved. This sales funnel is starting to break. because immediately with a targeted offer, I've never heard of this brand. Actually, I'm looking for something, but I actually don't know that I'm looking for it. I get a targeted offer. I purchase this brand that I've never heard of. So you start to break the sales funnel, and it's starting to break up with digital. And the last one, the IoT and artificial intelligence as well. And it's just the start of AI, of the revolution. We don't know really where it goes. But the start of it shows us already a hyper-personalized customer experience, and people now expecting that everything goes according to their needs. And we call it an ecosystem. Everything really circles around them, and it's really, if you're not relevant to them, you're starting to have a problem. And you see already, this is just the technologies that are out there already, how massively it changes the customer experience. Obviously, adding to that is the intelligent speakers. If you don't have this hyper-personalized experience, if you are not in their everyday thinking, you will be very easily overheard. If you ask Alexa to order you some paper towels, where is your brand suddenly? If you ask Alexa, where is the closest coffee shop? Brand agnostic. So you really need to be in people's mindset on the top of their preference list and so relevant in their life that they really consider you and ask you, actually order me this brand of paper towels. And again, it's a way of showing you that technology will drastically change it, and we need to prepare for what is coming next, although we don't know actually what's coming next, and that's the big challenge that we're facing as in the marketing space, but also if you're a business owner, to really prepare your business for what's coming next. As I said, there is an obligation of every business, apart from if you create it today, but also you need to create it today with that relevance principles in mind to really transform and really make sure that you are not missing the train because it goes far too quick. And you need to move from passive exposure, the way we talked about. It's like you talk with words, you talk about with visuals, you tell them what you're offering, and it's really about pushing individual products, pushing individual services. You need to move into active participation. You need to make sure that you're constantly engaging with them in a meaningful way. You need to have a very dynamic personal experience with them and really using tools that people already have, using devices, tapping into their life, really understanding the consumer and making sure that you're really expanding into their life rather than just offering a product that hopefully they buy it. And that's what we call living experiences. And it's quite a simple concept, but if you get it right, it's the first step for you really to step into much more of the relevance scheme of your customers. And so in the middle is obviously the customer, and it's every customer, wherever the customer sits. And outside, you have the direct relationships. So every customer, or every you, think about yourself. You have a relationship with your mobile phone, with your bike, with your house, with your car, with your laptop. And you cannot expect the brand you can't expect the customer to like you if you don't leverage all the great touch points that I'm already using. So what you need to do as a brand, as a service, to tap into these direct relationships and make use of it to become relevant, because every time they use their phone, you should be relevant to them. But not just that, they also have friends. They have friends and family. You need to tap into those great relationships they're having and let them do the talking and make sure that the friends two people are talking about your brands rather than you talking about them. And that's what we defined as living experiences. And there is brands that I'll share later who do it really well. So that's the key. If you look at all these brands that do it really well, the key to it is really relentless relevance. So if you don't know what's coming next, if you don't know really what technology brings next, what are the next changes and trends, if you are relentlessly relevant in people's lives and continue to stay by having a living experience, then you can keep up with the change, you can stay very relevant, and you have a very profitable growth experience. We at Profit, we are running a study every year with 40,000 people around the world in US, Germany, UK, and China. And we look at the different trends. And it's quite interesting if you look at the established players, if you look at the car manufacturers, for example, and look at the relevance levels as compared to car sharing. The car sharing ones are moving drastically up the road, so they're really relevant. They solve a lot of the pain points. They use a phone that you have already. You don't need to pay insurance. You don't need to go to the petrol stations. You don't need to do all sorts of things that people don't want to do anymore. Whereas the car manufacturers, in a way, many of them, they did not tap into people's lives. They still offer you a car, have a one-way communication to you, and then expect you to buy the car. And there we see in this industry, for example, drastic changes when it comes to relevance. Other industries, the financial sector, a lot of low scores in the relevance. We see a lot of fintech, a lot of new innovative services that go via a mobile phone, massively spiking and really competing against the big ones. So I think someone said it today, if you're a big established player and you think, okay, I'm in Brazil, we're the biggest ones, there will be someone coming who is so relevant to your customers that they eventually will flip over to the new emerging player. And even as an established organization, you need to be prepared to just make sure that when the time comes, you're already planned for it. So those are the dimensions of relevance, how you can actually drive relevance. So I think we talked a lot about innovation. So if you are innovative, obviously staying ahead of the curve, that's one of the major things. But actually, if you cannot combine it with the customer obsession, if you cannot combine it with something that is relevant, don't innovate for the sake of it. It's basically, there is a pain point, there is a need, and I innovate based on that pain point and need. And it sounds so simple, right? But if you go to the R&D, they love to innovate. They love to do the R&D, and they come up with devices and features, and then they go to marketing and say, and now promote it for me. And then you need to find, what does it actually solve again? Or was it just because you like to innovate for the sake of it, right? These are the 2 points. Distinctly inspired, it's split off, but it's inspired. You also need to stand for something that can inspire your customers. Just to have an innovation that solves a problem is also not good enough because someone else will come to have the same innovation or just copies you in a very quick manner. So if you have a higher purpose, if you have something that inspires people, it will also help you actually to compete in the long run. And then the last one, pretty straightforward, ruthlessly pragmatic, is really about develop the most simple, the most straightforward, and the most pragmatic experience and solution that you can offer. And that's simplicity is the hardest one, right? Because it's so complex to pin it down to something that is very, very simple. So those ones are the 4 drivers that we actually uncovered in the research as well, and these ones that we are constantly measuring different brands and where we see the different trends and developments. And also what we see, if you are relentlessly relevant and if you really score high on those attributes, you're not just having a long-term growth trajectory. So here it's the 10 years growth. So you see there is a nice growth trajectory, but it's also a profitable growth trajectory. So if you are a relentlessly relevant brand, you will grow, outperform the rest of the market, but you will also outperform the rest of the market in terms of profitability. And that's the crux on it. So how do we, talking about relevant brands, how do we actually put that theory into practice, right? What can we do? And it doesn't really matter who you are as an organization, if you're a small organization or a massively big organization. If you're a startup or a traditional heritage company is around for 200 years, it's the same process and it's the same different tools that you actually want to have and implement in your organization. And so on the one side is to develop a purpose, something you need to stand for. It's the living experience that we talked about. And the third one is really like the culture and capabilities within your organization and making sure that your organization is ready for that change, but also ready for what's coming next and really making sure that they are prepared. Let's go into it in detail for each individual ones. So if you think about the brand purpose, right? If you think about, I took the example of Patagonia, right? They could easily sell, we are the best sports clothing manufacturer, but no, they're not. Inherent in their culture is this sense of doing good. Inherent in a culture is, yes, we want to do the best products, but it's really without any unnecessary harm, and we want to make sure that we're constantly innovating and constantly improving to reduce the waste and reduce the impact that we are having, the population has on the environment. And that's a cause in itself that is very true to Patagonia in the first place, right? They are really living it every day. They're constantly looking for different ways of materials, recycled materials, and so forth. But it's also something that goes beyond the transaction. It's not really relevant for me as a customer when I do the transaction, but it's beyond the transaction that gives me a good feeling about this brand, that I actually, with the purchase of it, I do something good. And so this is beyond transaction, but also when you think internally. We find that, especially when you think about the millennial generation, is that people want to work for organizations that have a big purpose, and the purpose that should have a social impact. And they even take pay cuts. There's a lot of studies out there, you can read it up, that if you have a purpose, you're not just attracting the best-in-class talent, but you're also keeping that talent, even if you might not pay them the best amount of money. So if there is someone coming and said, do you want to work for my company? I pay you more. Those people are actually very likely to say, no, I don't do it for money because I believe in this purpose of our organization, and this is what everyone needs to find. And we have a lot of B2B clients, or we have a lot of other clients, and immediately you would say, we are a big electricity firm around for 200 years. I mean, what's our purpose, right? We're providing electricity. And there's always a bigger purpose. Even if you're B2B, if you're in any industry, you can be the backbone of society. You can be the engine of a society, making sure that the economy is flourishing. So you can find a very interesting purpose that sounds true to who you are and the proof points that you actually deliver. And the last one that I say about purpose is, if you have a purpose, and if you have maybe the innovation edge now, and you think, I don't need a purpose, I have the best innovation, and I have the best technology, and I move forward with that, right? At one point, you will fall behind. And it might be for 1 year, might be for 2 years, might be for longer. As soon as you fall behind and you don't have a purpose, a brand that people believe in, people will switch. If you have a purpose, people will still forgive you that you might not have the most innovative product right now, but I believe still in your cause, and your customer will still keep with you. So that's the purpose around it. The second one, I think I talked a lot about the living experience, so I will skip over that very fast. But what's really important here is to make sure that you're planning for the future, make sure that you're tapping into their ecosystem, that they are already designing experience that are hyper personalized for them, and just making sure that you constantly understand it and design around the consumer and customer need, rather than just designing an experience because you think it's the best experience, best in class. And the last one, I think, is important on different levels. If you're the leader, then I think it's very, very important that you really believe in the purpose, you believe in that mindset of being customer-centric. If you're an employee, you should really understand what your company stands for. You should understand, actually, this is our purpose, and you should be excited about what gets you out of bed in the morning. That's what we use often as a phrase. And if you have a purpose, people are much more likely to use that story to just motivate themselves, get through hard times, get through hard working hours, because you're working towards a much bigger goal, and internal engagement and giving them the capabilities is a big area for you as a business to get right. So this is the theory behind it. So I think I will talk about one case that we did for T-Mobile, and it's a fairly old case, but why I chose it is because it really shows that transformation of an organization that wasn't in a very good spot. So if you look at T-Mobile, and I don't know, that's T-Mobile US, I think we have to say, it was spot number 4 in a very, very crowded market. They were wanting to do the merger with AT&T, and it fell through. So they were deciding, okay, what are we doing? We have declining growth. We are completely irrelevant for the customers in the market, and they really don't know what we stand for. That was the situation that was faced. The first step, hopefully that's the one thing that you remember, is let's look at the customer. Let's look at the customer landscape and really understand what are the pain points, what are their needs, what are their problems in their everyday life, but also what are the problems with contracts. And as you can imagine, within the carrier business, I mean, everyone has a mobile phone, has contracts, there's a lot of problems, and there's more pain points than good points. So it's fairly easy to find the pain points in this industry, like locked-in contracts for 2 years. If you want to get out, it's really hard. Renewal of your mobile phone within 2 years. If you lose your mobile phone, if there's a new mobile phone coming out, you're stuck in the contract. So customer service is super bad. If you call them, there's always a problem with your bill. So a lot of different problems in what you do as a business. You map all these problems and all these needs and all the behaviors onto a big map, and then what you do is like you prioritize which of these pain points actually make the most difference if we can solve it through different services, through different customer experiences. But the first step would always be to develop a positioning, a purpose of what the company stands for. And T-Mobile then decided to basically call themselves the Un-carrier. So anything that what you stand as a carrier, T-Mobile didn't want to stand anymore, so they got rid of these 2 years. They got rid of the of anything. They just started with the unlimited idea, and really having a radical change also in the service, in the products they're offering, is inherent with the new positioning. So making that gap between purpose and service. And you can see here the different moves that now they started to implement with the Un-carrier movement. So they said, okay, actually those 2-year service contracts, we get rid of them. You can always get out of your contract. It's not binding anymore. They started to do unlimited internet back in the days. This was big. Then they moved forward, understood that actually music is becoming much more important, so they gave unlimited music. They gave you lifetime data packages and so forth. So really breaking the rule of the game by really tackling the needs and pain points that we found in the research and to address them to be more relevant to the market. And as a last slide, that's the success of if you really turn your organization into a customer-focused organization, if you turn your organization into a relentlessly relevant organization, and if you continue to innovate based on pain points, if you continue to innovate based on the changing needs. You see, when it launched, since then it went up. They then overtook Sprint, and they're still on a really, really good trajectory to just like conquer back the market in the US, because they changed their strategy. They got a really important purpose based on customer needs and customer pain points. That's me. I think the second case is we ran out of time, but thank you so much for your time, and pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot.